NFL great Joe Theismann. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
We're doing just fine. We have a comedian, Mike Birbiglia, here with us. Gary Simons, Willie G is here, and we're all
listening. I love it. I love it. It's great.
We're here to find out what's actually going on in the NFL from someone who knows what they're talking about.
Oh, wait a minute. Chip knows what he's talking
Christy, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
But you told me when the season started, I thought you said you're going to be very pleased. Of course, I'm a longtime Washington football team fan, and Joe, you were not wrong about the general state of the team. And I see a team going on that field. I get a great vibe. What can you tell us close up, first of all, in general, and secondly, about Jaden's injury, and what do you think he's going to do Sunday?
First of all, I think obviously if they believe he can play, he'll play. I mean, this is just the way Jason was. You never see him get upset, but you saw him get upset a little bit on the sidelines when he knew he was hurt and couldn't go back on the football field. He's that kind of a young man. But I think Dan Quinn has done a tremendous job putting this team together. Adam Peters, the general manager, bringing in older players, veterans, and then also with the draft choices and the young players they put together. It's a team, and Chick, you hit it right on the head. This is a team that plays like a team.
Yep.
They really do. They complement one another. I mean, just you look at the year. Defense has done a terrific job. Offense has been able to make plays and score points, which they haven't been able to do over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, we couldn't break 20 to save our lives at one point. And then you go win a football game with 7 field goals, which means your kicking team is doing the right thing. So every element of this football team is making a world of difference. And I think Jaden's just a terrific young man. And this was the whole thing. I mean, it was a Cinderella year going on for him in the first 6 games. And then all of a sudden you wind up in a situation where you get nicked and you get hurt. Now, how are they going to treat this as far as him running the football? Because it's been a big part of the offense. What's Cliff Kingsbury going to do? He's another one who's done a masterful job.
Yes.
Being able to get the ball out of Jaden's hand so he doesn't get hit, doesn't get hurt. I remember, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Tom Moore, who coached was the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis for many, many years, coached Peyton Manning when he first came in the league. And I remember sitting down with Tom. And he simply said, there's 2 things I'm not going to let happen to Peyton Manning. I'm not going to let him get beat up physically, and I'm not going to let him get beat up mentally, because he's going to be our quarterback here for a decade plus. And he was absolutely right. I think it's a similar type of an approach they're doing in Washington. Jaden does move around, and he's learning to protect himself more. And now the question is can he get through this week against the Bears, which is going to be a challenge, healthy, and be able to, improve and continue to get better and better. But I think Cliff's done a really good job of protecting Jaden.
What would you think about or would you care to comment on the New York Jets situation and Aaron and bringing in receivers and all the players that Aaron, from the outside looking in, it looks like Aaron's pulling the strings, and they're doing exactly what they want him to say, and even got a coach fired, is what people are thinking.
I don't agree with the fact that he got the coach fired. I think the football team's not playing very good football. They're missing opportunities. Aaron's thrown more interceptions, than we see out of him. It's New York City, and it's Aaron Rodgers. I was listening to the show earlier. One of the guys was talking about going to New York, and you better make sure that your first show is a good show. It's like doing speeches. The first speech you do, you better be a good one, because everybody talks in the industry. And now it's New York City. It's the stage. It's a place where people just, other than Philadelphia, they want to criticize people on the field. I mean, they really do. I mean, and Aaron is, certainly been a target. He has his ways to do things that don't necessarily fit into what the people perceive in a normal way. But it's Aaron Rodgers, extremely talented. The thing that I noticed, not that they're not playing very good football, and I don't think you can keep adding chess pieces and think that it's going to solve the problem. This is a football team that doesn't run the football probably as much as it should. This is a football team that has a pretty good defense, but doesn't really get a chance to rely on it. And Aaron has been under a microscope and will always be under a microscope because of who he is. But when you really sit back and look at this football team, you think it's too talented. And Woody Johnson has said it. The most talented team he's believed he's had. Well, talent doesn't get it done. Playing as a team gets it done. Look at the Denver Broncos with a brand new quarterback, one of the best defenses in football. You look at Jaden in Washington. You look at Caleb in Chicago. All our young quarterbacks are playing well because the team's playing well around them. Mm-hmm. And here's Aaron Rodgers with all the experience in the Super Bowl and the MVPs, and they keep trying to plug in pieces. He brought guys with him from Green Bay, but they're not running the same offense they ran in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. And if he's trying to coach the offense and trying to play quarterback, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Right. Joe, on a much dumber note, there was a thing. This is an incredibly stupid question, and I'm very proud of it. Paul George in the NBA is calling for journalists to be kicked out of the locker rooms. And obviously, you had to spend a great deal of time wearing a towel talking to someone. Maybe it's probably really rough after a tough loss to be standing there with a towel wanting to dry off and get the hell out of there. And you got to talk to reporters. What is your take on this? Is this ever going to happen? Will they be kicking reporters out and just having press conferences? What's going to go there?
The genie's out of the bottle. I don't believe they'll back up and do that. In this day and age in society today, I would be. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I was going to say I'd be surprised, but I guess you could say nothing really surprises me anymore. Of the things we've seen. Yeah. But no, it's not going to happen. Everybody's going to have access as they have had access, because once you start limiting people going into the locker room, they want that raw emotion. The fans want that raw emotion. It's what everybody looks for today. It's part of journalism today, is that story, that moment, that rawness after you've thrown the interception. You don't have to say anything, but what do you look like on camera? Or when things go really well, the opportunity to be able to laud your teammates and be able to say, yeah, we did a terrific job. Everybody wants that, and I don't. The fans would really revolt. I think.
I understand that part, Joe, but I find it hard to believe that regular fans want to see a coach who's down by 14 talking to someone as he's trying to get to the locker room. What are you going to do better in the second half? I am so uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable watching that, but people enjoy that.
I get it. I look at this and I think, what kind of question are you going to ask? Right. But the other thing is, we were talking about with Paul George is trying to limit him in the locker room. But it's like coaches. Your kicker just missed a kick. You're now 2-5. Right. And coach, what do you think about the kicker missing the kick? What you want to say is, I just want to strangle him.
I really do. Thanks for asking.
But you have to continue to try and control the emotions, and everybody wants that raw emotion moment. That's what they're seeking for. That's that moment in television that they're trying to capture. And you know what? As a speaker, and I know you guys as comedians, as you move through a show, as you move through things, you look for those special moments where you can capture the crowd. And this is what they're trying to do, I think, with some of the interviews. Interviewing coach, everybody wants access to coaches. The whole thing is people want to get as far and as deep inside the sport as they possibly can. And this is just another element and a way to try and do it.
Yeah. Well, now that brings us to the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones and threatening to fire people. That turns out he didn't even own the radio station he was talking to. But apparently he's really gone a little crazier than normal. What's going on with the Cowboys? What do you hear, Joe? Would you care to comment, or I'm not sure what you want to say?
Well, number one, I think when they brought back Ezekiel Elliott, who was a really, really good running back,
sure,
they brought him back, and they didn't keep Tony Pollard. They basically emptied their running back room. And, the National Football League is one of glitz and flair and throw the ball all over the place. And let's look for who's going to throw for 5,000 yards and all that kind of stuff. The fundamentals of football I learned from George Allen a long, long time ago, back in the 70s. And Chick, you can appreciate this.
Oh, yeah.
The ability to run the football and the ability to stop people from running the football will normally be a determining factor in whether you win or lose a football game. Because when you drop back to throw the football, a lot of bad things can happen. Normally, when you run the football, you limit the bad things that can happen. Therefore, you stay ahead of the chains, as everybody likes to refer to. Mm-hmm. And I think Dallas can't run the football. They put it all on Dak's shoulders. You know, you had the drama with CeeDee Lamb. You had the drama with Dak. And your offensive line gets nicked up, which is, to me, the one element of the football team that doesn't get enough credit. And that's really, just going over to Washington for a second.
Yes.
Our offensive lines played really, really well.
Yep.
And nobody talks about it, which is fine, because that means they're not making mistakes.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming. Nobody mentioned that the offensive line was going to be any good. Yeah.
I mean, we have more than half the football team, when the season opened, more than half the football team were brand new in Commander uniforms.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great job all around. But in Dallas, Jerry's getting tired of the questions. And now he's he didn't do anything in the offseason. From all the pundits, as they looked at the Dallas Cowboys, basically will say Jerry did absolutely nothing in the offseason to improve his football team. And you have to improve your football team. Like I said, you let a good running back get out of the building, and you brought back an aging one. That he's not going to break. He's not going to break a 60-yard run.
Right.
And so now you rely very, very heavily on Dak in the passing game, and you just can't live by one dimension in the National Football League. You have to be able to run the football. That's the thing that they're not really. We talked about the Jets before. That's something else the Jets have to do a little bit more, is try and run the football. Look at the Baltimore Ravens now. Lamar's an exception to the rule as far as quarterbacking goes. And, here he is working on his candidacy again for an MVP of the National Football League.
Right.
But then you look at Derrick Henry. I mean, who do you stop? You've got a 250-pound running back coming at you, or you've got a quarterback who's going to run by you. Mm-hmm. Pick one. No. Pick one. First of all, you're not going to catch the running. You're not going to catch the quarterback. Yeah. And secondly, I don't see too many guys stepping in front of Derrick Henry. And by the way, if he gets by you, you're not going to catch him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now, last time we talked, I came away with something I was really surprised. You said if you could go back and play, the thing you enjoyed the most was punt returns.
Absolutely.
Which I find staggering, because I would not want to have these guys.
Because quarterback is the America's position. I mean, that gets all the girls.
But what I want to ask is semi-related, but not really. After watching it for a while, how do you feel about the new kickoff situation and the new setup and that whole thing?
I laugh. I laugh at it. I think the UFL tried it and they got rid of it. Okay, that's one thing, but. I realize that they're doing
That's not a good omen, is it?
Yeah, well, they're doing it to try and protect the players, because they've said that they don't want the guys running down and running into one another. Now what you're doing is you got a group of guys running backwards and then running forward to run into somebody. What's amazing? This is the funny part. Think of this: you've got 20 guys lined up within 5 yards of one another. One of them is facing the guy kicking the ball. The other one is facing the receiver. So the ones that are facing the one kicking the ball have to turn around, and no one can move until the ball lands somewhere, either is caught or lands somewhere. So the guys that can see where the ball is going to wind up, I would think would have a distinct advantage to the guys who've turned their head away from who they're supposed to block. And then all of a sudden it looks like a scrum. It's like, okay, we're 5 yards apart. Boom, let's hit one another. And the ball usually comes out to the 30-yard line. I think the average of kick, I don't know what it is at this point, but I think 4 or 5 games into the season, it was the 29.7 or 30.1 yard. So, I mean, what you basically have done is tried to make it safer. That's what they say, that, you don't want guys running into one another. But I think everybody was afraid that with this configuration, you'd get all these great returns. I think there's been 1 or 2 maybe this year. Eventually it looks to me like we're just going to wind up putting the ball on the 30-yard line and saying, go play football.
Right.
Okay. Before we go, I'm sorry, Joe, if people, I know you do a lot of corporate speaking. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find you?
there's different speakers bureaus that represent me out there, but they can go to joetheismann.com, which is my website, and inquire. And then, of course, they can always get the book, How to Be a Champion Every Day, get that on Amazon and order it and appreciate it. I mean, it's the basis of my presentations. Yeah, we talk about goals, attitudes, customer service, teamwork, motivation, and have a lot of fun. It's being on stage, and the guys there know, being on stage, it's exhilarating. I had an opportunity in Indianapolis in the old Hoosier Dome to speak to a group of 32,000. And I understand how musicians every night can get up for a performance. You can be exhausted. Once you walk out on that stage, it all changes. The energy changes. Your approach to everything changes, and it becomes you ride the waves of the emotions. And if you're a comedian, I'm sure you ride the waves of the laughter, and every one of the jokes that are told, what the responses are supposed to be, because you've done this before. And it's just like in the speeches, you basically have a better understanding of what the people are going to respond to. But it's that's how they can get a hold of me.
Yeah. Do you end with a bang every time? Is there a place this always kills right here?
There's a story I tell at the end about fear, about Reggie White, for example, the great Packer and Eagle, and Reggie's 6'4", 315 pounds, could run a 40-yard dash in 4.6 seconds. Wow. Joe Theismann runs that same distance in 5 seconds flat. Common sense is telling you if Reggie's chasing Joe, he's going to catch him. And I'm telling you, not if fear's a motivator.
Right.
Well, Joe, it's a great pleasure. Joe Theismann, one of the greats from the NFL. Thanks so much for your time, Joe.
And thank you, guys. Love being with you.
Good luck to your Washington football.
Chickster, we're on the rise, man.
I know it. Here we go.
We're on the rise.
Sunday's going to be big.
Banner.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you,
Bye,
Joe.
Joe.
What a great guy.